As a healthcare analyst specializing in geriatric wellness and chronic condition management, I have spent years observing a pervasive and often misunderstood tragedy. It's the slow, creeping erosion of mobility and joy that accompanies chronic joint pain. Many older adults resign themselves to this discomfort, viewing it as an unavoidable tax on a long life. They wake up stiff, move through their day with a wince, and accept a smaller and smaller world as their new reality. But what if I told you that a significant portion of this daily suffering isn't just an inevitable consequence of aging, but a direct result of a war being waged inside your body, a war fueled, in large part, by the very food on your plate? The battlefield is your joints, and the enemy is chronic, low-grade inflammation, while acute inflammation is your body's healthy. Short-term response to injury, chronic inflammation is a silent, smoldering fire. It persists for months or years, relentlessly damaging tissues, including the delicate cartilage that cushions your bones. This persistent inflammatory state is the underlying driver of conditions like osteoarthritis and can severely exacerbate autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis. The modern diet, unfortunately, is laden with agents that stoke this fire. In this two-part series, we will expose the 7 primary nutritional culprits that are unequivocally linked to increased inflammation and joint pain. This is not about trendy diets or fleeting fads. This is about understanding the biochemical impact of what you consume. Eliminating or drastically reducing these foods is not a mere suggestion. It is arguably the single most powerful step you can take to reclaim your comfort, mobility, and quality of life. Let's begin by unmasking the first 3 architects of your agony. 1. The sweet poison, added sugars and high fructose corn syrup, HFCS. If there were a single public enemy number 1 for your joints, it would be added sugar. We're not talking about the natural sugars found in a whole apple or a bowl of berries, which come packaged with fiber, water, and micronutrients. We're talking about the refined, concentrated sugars and syrups that manufacturers pump into an astonishing 75% of packaged foods and beverages. The mechanism of damage. When you consume excess sugar, your body's inflammatory response is triggered through several pathways. The most potent is the creation of compounds called advanced glycation end products, appropriately shortened to AGEs. Sugar molecules in your bloodstream attach to proteins and fats in an uncontrolled process called glycation, forming these destructive AGEs. Think of it as a form of caramelization or rusting happening inside your body. These AGEs are highly inflammatory. They directly attack proteins like collagen and elastin, the very building blocks of your cartilage and connective tissues. They make your cartilage stiffer, more brittle, and more susceptible to damage and degradation. Simultaneously, a high sugar intake signals your body to release a flood of pro-inflammatory messengers called cytokines. Molecules like interleukin-6, IL-6, C-reactive protein, CRP, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-alpha, are the generals of the inflammatory army. Studies have consistently shown that diets high in sugar send the production of these cytokines into overdrive, creating a state of systemic inflammation that directly targets the sensitive tissues within your joints. Where it hides, the obvious sources are sugary drinks, sodas, sweetened teas, fruit juices, desserts, candy, and pastries. But the truly insidious sources are the ones masquerading as healthy. These include many breakfast cereals, granola bars, flavored yogurts, ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressings, and even canned soups. High fructose corn syrup, HFCS, is a particularly problematic variant, as it is metabolized primarily by the liver in a way that promotes inflammation and fatty liver disease, further burdening your body's ability to manage its inflammatory load. The call to action: become a meticulous label reader. Look for added sugars on the nutrition panel. Be wary of its many aliases: corn syrup, fructose, dextrose, sucrose, maltose, molasses, and cane juice. The goal is to eliminate sweetened beverages entirely and drastically reduce your intake of processed foods. Your joints will thank you for it with reduced stiffness and pain. 2. The silent saboteur. Artificial trans fats, partially hydrogenated oils. For decades, artificial trans fats were celebrated as a cheap, shelf-stable alternative to butter and lard. We now know them to be one of the most dangerous food additives ever created, with a direct and devastating impact on systemic inflammation and cardiovascular health. While many countries have banned or restricted their use, they still linger in the global food supply. The mechanism of damage. Artificial trans fats are created through an industrial process called partial hydrogenation, which turns liquid vegetable oils into solids. Your body does not recognize this altered fat structure. When you consume trans fats, they are incorporated into your cell membranes, including the cells lining your blood vessels, the endothelium, and your joints, the synovium. This triggers a powerful inflammatory response. Your body treats these cells as foreign and damaged, launching an immune attack that increases systemic inflammation markers like CRP. This inflammatory response is not localized. It's a body-wide phenomenon. The inflammation that damages the lining of your arteries is the same inflammation that aggravates the lining of your joints. Furthermore, trans fats have been proven to raise LDL, bad, cholesterol while lowering HDL, good, cholesterol, creating a double-edged sword that harms both your heart and your joints. For those with inflammatory arthritis, such as rheumatoid arthritis, consuming trans fats is like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. Where it hides. The primary sources of artificial trans fats have historically been stick margarine, vegetable shortening, commercially fried foods, French fries, fried chicken, packaged baked goods, cookies, crackers, cakes, and non-dairy coffee creamers. While many manufacturers have reformulated their products, you must remain vigilant. The key phrase to look for on an ingredient list is partially hydrogenated oil. If you see those words, put the product back on the shelf. There is no safe level of artificial trans fat consumption. The call to action: adopt a zero-tolerance policy for artificial trans fats. Cook with healthy, unprocessed fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil. When you eat out, be mindful that many restaurants still use hydrogenated oils for deep frying due to their low cost and high smoke point. Avoiding deep-fried foods is a simple and effective strategy to protect your joints from this silent saboteur. 3. The empty aggressor. Refined carbohydrates. Closely related to the problem of added sugars is the issue of refined carbohydrates. These are grains and starches that have been stripped of their bran and germ, and with them, nearly all of their fiber, B vitamins, and essential minerals. What remains is a fine, starchy powder that your body treats almost identically to pure sugar. The mechanism of damage. Refined carbohydrates. Think of white bread, white rice, most pasta, crackers, and pretzels have a very high glycemic index, GI. This means they are digested and absorbed into the bloodstream with incredible speed, causing a dramatic spike in blood sugar and a subsequent surge of insulin. This rapid glycemic response is highly pro-inflammatory. It triggers the same release of inflammatory cytokines, IL-6, TNF-alpha, and the formation of the same destructive agents that we discussed with added sugars. Imagine the difference between a log and a pile of sawdust. A log, a complex carbohydrate like quinoa or an apple, burns slowly and steadily, providing sustained energy. A pile of sawdust, a refined carbohydrate like a slice of white bread, ignites in a flash, creating a burst of heat, inflammation, before quickly burning out, leaving you hungry and your body in a stressed, inflamed state. This cycle of blood sugar spikes and crashes, repeated multiple times a day, creates a perpetual low-grade inflammatory environment that constantly irritates and degrades your joint tissues. It deprives your body of the steady energy and nutrients needed for tissue repair and instead bombards it with inflammatory signals. Where it hides. The culprits are everywhere in the standard Western diet. White bread, bagels, pizza dough, most breakfast cereals, white pasta, white rice. And virtually all snack foods like chips and crackers are made from refined grains. Even foods that sound healthy, like those made with enriched wheat flour, are still refined products. The call to action: make a conscious switch from refined to whole. Choose 100% whole wheat or whole grain bread and pasta. Replace white rice with brown rice, quinoa, barley, or farro. These whole foods contain fiber, which slows down digestion, prevents blood sugar spikes, and actively feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut that help regulate inflammation. This simple swap starts the inflammatory process and provides your body with the nutrients it needs to build and maintain healthy joints that I end the first part of our investigation. We expose the big three inflammatory triggers: added sugars, artificial trans fats, and refined carbohydrates. These foods form a toxic foundation in the modern diet, creating a systemic environment of chronic inflammation that directly assaults joint health. Now, we turn our attention to 4 additional culprits. These may be less obvious, but their impact is no less significant. Avoiding them is the next critical step in extinguishing the inflammatory fire and liberating yourself from the daily grip of joint pain. 4. The imbalance of power: excessive omega-6 fatty acids. This point requires a bit of nuance. Omega-6 fatty acids are essential fats, meaning your body cannot produce them, and you must obtain them from your diet. They play a role in normal bodily functions. The problem is not omega-6 itself, but its ratio to another essential fat, omega-3. The mechanism of damage: think of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids as 2 opposing forces in a delicate balance. Omega-3s, found in sources like fatty fish, flax seeds, and walnuts, are powerfully anti-inflammatory. They are the precursors to molecules that resolve inflammation and promote healing. In contrast, most omega-6 fatty acids are pro-inflammatory. They are precursors to molecules that initiate and sustain the inflammatory response. An ideal, healthy diet, like that of our ancestors, contained an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of somewhere between 1 and 4:1. This allowed the body to mount a healthy inflammatory response when needed for fighting infection or healing an injury, and then efficiently turn off. The modern Western diet has completely shattered this balance. Due to the proliferation of cheap vegetable oils used in processed foods, the average ratio today is a staggering 15:1 to 20:1, and sometimes even higher. This extreme imbalance creates a constant, unopposed pro-inflammatory state. Your body is perpetually primed to overreact with inflammation at the slightest provocation, and it lacks the anti-inflammatory raw materials, omega-3s, to shut the process down. For your joints, this means more swelling, more pain, and more enzymatic destruction of cartilage. You are essentially fueling the on switch for inflammation while disabling the off switch. Where it hides, the primary sources of excess omega-6 are common industrial vegetable and seed oils, including soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, and cottonseed oil. These oils are ubiquitous in processed foods, from salad dressings and mayonnaise to chips, crackers, and store-bought baked goods. They are also the primary oils used for frying in most restaurants. The call to action: this is a 2-part mission. First, actively reduce your intake of the high omega-6 oils listed above. Read ingredient labels on all processed foods. Cook at home using high-quality, anti-inflammatory fats like extra virgin olive oil, rich in monounsaturated fat, or avocado oil. Second, and just as importantly, consciously increase your intake of omega-3 fatty acids. Aim to eat fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, herring, or sardines at least twice a week. Incorporate ground flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts into your daily routine. Restoring this critical fatty acid balance is fundamental to controlling inflammation. 5. The meaty menace: processed and high-fat red meats. For meat lovers, this can be a difficult truth. While meat can be a source of valuable nutrients like iron and vitamin B12, certain types and quantities can significantly contribute to your body's inflammatory load. The primary offenders are processed meats and high-fat cuts of red meat. The mechanism of damage. Processed meats, such as bacon, sausages, hot dogs, and deli meats, are a multi-pronged assault on your joints. They are typically very high in saturated fats and sodium, which we'll discuss next. More insidiously, they contain preservatives like nitrates and nitrites, which have been linked to increased oxidative stress and inflammation. High-fat red meats, like fatty steaks and ground beef, contribute to inflammation primarily through their high content of saturated fat, which can trigger adipose, fat cell, inflammation, and arachidonic acid, an omega-6 fatty acid that is a direct precursor to inflammatory compounds. Furthermore, cooking these meats at very high temperatures, grilling, broiling, frying, creates the same inflammatory agents we discussed in the context of sugar, further promoting stiffness and tissue damage in the joints. The call to action. This does not mean you must become a vegetarian. It means you must be more selective. Drastically reduce or eliminate processed meats from your diet. When you eat red meat, choose leaner cuts like sirloin or tenderloin, and consume it in moderation, perhaps once or twice a week, not daily. Prioritize healthier protein sources that actively fight inflammation. These include the omega-3 rich fatty fish mentioned earlier, lean poultry like chicken or turkey breast, and especially plant-based proteins like lentils, beans, chickpeas, and tofu, which are packed with anti-inflammatory fiber and phytonutrients. 6. The pressure cooker. Excessive sodium. Salt is an essential mineral, vital for nerve function and fluid balance. However, the vast majority of people consume far more than they need, and this excess is a hidden contributor to joint discomfort. The mechanism of damage. High sodium intake leads to fluid retention. Your body holds onto extra water to dilute the high concentration of salt in your bloodstream. This increased fluid volume can lead to swelling throughout the body, including in the tissues of your joints. This swelling, or edema, puts physical pressure on the joint capsule, increasing stiffness, reducing range of motion, and causing a dull, aching pain. For someone already suffering from inflammatory arthritis, this added pressure can be excruciating. Some research also suggests that high salt intake can directly stimulate an inflammatory response by triggering certain immune cells, adding a biochemical insult to the physical pressure. Where it hides, the salt shaker on your table is not the main problem. Over 70% of the sodium in the modern diet comes from processed, packaged, and restaurant foods. The worst offenders include canned soups and vegetables, frozen dinners, pizza, processed cheeses, cured meats, like ham and bacon, and countless sauces and condiments. A single serving of canned soup can contain half or even all of your recommended daily sodium intake. The call to action. The most effective strategy is to cook more meals at home from fresh ingredients, where you have complete control over the sodium content. When you do buy packaged goods, compare labels and choose the low sodium or no salt added options, instead of reaching for the salt shaker. Learn to season your food with a vibrant array of anti-inflammatory herbs and spices like garlic, ginger, turmeric, oregano, rosemary, and black pepper. This not only protects your joints from excess fluid pressure, but also provides them with powerful healing compounds. 7. The dehydrating toxin. Alcohol. While a glass of red wine is often touted for its antioxidant benefits, the net effect of regular alcohol consumption on joint health is overwhelmingly negative. Alcohol is a systemic toxin that impacts your body in multiple ways that directly worsen joint pain. The mechanism of damage. First, alcohol is a potent diuretic, meaning it causes your body to lose more fluid than you take in, leading to dehydration. Your cartilage, the cushion in your joints, is composed of about 80% water. Dehydration concentrates the synovial fluid that lubricates your joints and robs your cartilage of the water it needs to remain plump and shock absorbent, increasing friction and pain. Second, your liver is your body's primary detoxification organ and plays a central role in managing inflammation. When you drink alcohol, Your liver must prioritize metabolizing this toxin above all else. This diverts resources away from its other crucial functions, including clearing inflammatory proteins from the blood. Chronic alcohol use can lead to liver inflammation, alcoholic hepatitis, which further cripples its ability to manage systemic inflammation. Third, alcohol significantly disrupts sleep patterns, preventing you from reaching the deep, restorative stages of sleep where tissue repair and growth hormone release occur. This is the critical time when your body works to heal the micro damage in your joints from the day's activities. Finally, certain alcoholic beverages, particularly beer, are high in purines, which are converted into uric acid in the body. For individuals susceptible to gout, this can trigger intensely painful inflammatory attacks in the joints. The call to action. The most prudent advice for anyone with significant joint pain is to eliminate alcohol entirely. If you choose to drink, do so in strict moderation. No more than 1 drink per day for women and 2 for men, with several alcohol-free days per week. Always hydrate with plenty of water when you do drink. View alcohol not as a casual beverage, but as a potent drug with significant consequences for your inflammatory status and joint integrity. Conclusion. From battleground to sanctuary, reclaiming your joints through a deeper understanding. We have now journeyed through the rogue gallery of dietary villains. Added sugars, trans fats, refined carbohydrates, imbalanced omega-6s, processed meats, excess sodium, and alcohol. Each one, in its own way, acts as a fuel source for the smoldering fire of chronic inflammation that lies at the heart of daily joint pain. Removing these 7 culprits is not about deprivation. It is about liberation. It is a strategic act of self-care that disarms the enemy and allows your body's natural healing processes to take center stage. But to truly solidify our commitment to this new path, we must move beyond the what and delve into the why on a more profound level. Why is this dietary approach so incredibly powerful? The answer lies in 2 interconnected biological concepts: the gut-joint axis and the battle against oxidative stress. In-depth explanation: the gut-joint axis and oxidative stress. 1. The gut-joint axis, the root of systemic inflammation. For a long time, we viewed our organ systems as separate. We now understand that this is profoundly untrue. There is a powerful and direct communication highway between your gut and your joints, known as the gut-joint axis. The health of your gut lining is arguably the single most important regulator of systemic inflammation in your entire body. Imagine the lining of your intestines as a tightly woven cheesecloth with highly intelligent gatekeepers. In a healthy state, it allows thoroughly digested nutrients to pass into your bloodstream while blocking undigested food particles, toxins, and harmful bacteria. Every single one of the 7 food categories we discussed viciously attacks this delicate lining. Sugars, refined carbs, and excessive omega-6s feed pathogenic bacteria, leading to an unhealthy gut microbiome dysbiosis. This imbalance, along with direct irritation from compounds like alcohol and food additives, damages the tight junctions between the intestinal cells. This creates a condition known as increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. When the gut is leaky, the gatekeepers are overwhelmed. Harmful substances, most notably a potent inflammatory molecule from bacteria called lipopolysaccharide, LPS, leak from the gut directly into your bloodstream. Your immune system, seeing these invaders in the blood, rightfully launches a massive body-wide inflammatory response. This is chronic, low-grade inflammation in its purest form. And where does this inflammation often settle? In the highly vascular, sensitive tissues of the joints, leading to synovitis, inflammation of the joint lining, cartilage degradation, and pain. By removing these 7 food groups, you're doing more than just reducing inflammatory inputs. You're performing a radical act of gut repair. You starve the bad bacteria, heal the gut lining, restore the integrity of the gatekeepers, and stop the flood of LPS into your bloodstream. You are cutting off the inflammation at its source. 2. Oxidative stress. the rusting of your joints. The second core concept is oxidative stress. Think of it as biological rusting. As your body generates energy and deals with toxins, it produces unstable molecules called free radicals. These molecules are like ricocheting bullets, damaging any cell they touch, including the chondrocyte, cartilage cells, and the synovial fluid in your joints. Antioxidants, which are abundant in whole foods like fruits, vegetables, and spices, are the compounds that safely neutralize these free radicals. The 7 inflammatory food groups are a disaster from an oxidative stress perspective. Not only do they offer virtually zero protective antioxidants, but their metabolism actively generates a massive surplus of free radicals. The breakdown of sugar, the processing of trans fats, and the detoxification of alcohol all create immense oxidative stress. This constant bombardment of free radicals overwhelms your body's antioxidant defenses, leading to accelerated cellular aging and tissue destruction directly within the joint capsule. The path forward, a diet of sanctuary. Therefore, the ultimate goal is to transform your diet from a battleground into a sanctuary. This involves 2 simultaneous actions: removing the agents of war, diligently eliminating the 7 categories we have detailed, supplying the agents of peace, actively flooding your body with nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant-rich foods. This means building your meals around a rainbow of vegetables and fruits, healthy omega-3 fats from fish and seeds, high-quality lean proteins, fiber-rich whole grains, and powerful anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric and ginger. It means prioritizing hydration with pure water to support your cartilage and flush out toxins. Aging is a fact of life, but chronic, debilitating pain does not have to be your destiny. The power to douse the inflammatory fire and rebuild your health resides not in a pharmacy, but in your pantry. By understanding the profound biochemical impact of your food choices and making a conscious, decisive shift, you can reclaim your mobility, silence the pain, and step back into a life of activity and joy. This is not merely a diet. It is a declaration of control over your own well-being.